Hey guys, Chase with Sherpa Equipment Company. Today we're going to be installing this Crestone rack on the 5th Gen 4Runner. You'll notice this truck does not have a factory rack on it. It rolled in with no rack. So if you need help removing the factory rack, reference the link in the video and we'll help you out with that. Otherwise, we're going to jump right into this install and go over what you're going to be receiving in the package from us. So we're going to go over what you're going to be receiving from us. You're going to have your side plates. We're going to set those aside for right now. You'll have your crossbars, your wind fairing. You're going to have your mounting feet. You're going to have 2 middles and 2 rears. The rears have an R, the middles have an M, and then you're going to have your adjustable feet up front. You're also going to have a big pile of hardware. I like to separate it all out before I start the install. You'll have a little thing of Loctite and a sticker. So we're going to go over real quick a couple things I like to do before even getting into the install. And this will just make your life a little easier down the road. First things first, I like to pop these little circles out of the rubber. This is going to make installing them on the roof much easier. It also will ensure that you're going to get a good watertight seal. We don't want any kind of water leaking through. So this is definitely one of the first steps I like to do. After I've removed all of these sleeves, I like to also set up my bonded washers on our bolts and just set some of our other washers up on our T-nuts. Just make it a little bit easier and quicker down the road. I'm also going to be assembling our front adjustables. This is a very important step to making sure you have a quiet rack that rides nicely down the road, no vibration, no sound. So we'll be focusing in on those a lot today too. Jumping right into these adjustable feet, you're going to have 4 carriage bolts, and you're going to take your adjustable top and your adjustable bottom. Carriage bolt is going to go through, round side facing out towards you. It makes a nice clean finish on it. And then your adjustable top is going to go right up against it on the back side like that. Then you're going to take 2 of your black 1/4-inch washers, or silver if you got a silver rack. Put those on the back side of the bolts coming through, and then take 2 nylock nuts and get those threaded on. What I like to do, since these are nylocks, they're going to be pretty hard to turn once they're up on the vehicle, so I will run them all the way down just to where the adjustable mount is still adjustable up and down. That'll just save me some time on the back end of when I actually get the rack up there. So this is it fully assembled. Like I said, I tighten these nuts down all the way and then just 1 turn back, just so there's no play there, but I still can slide it up and down. It will make it much easier when the rack's on the truck. So now I'm going to assemble the other one, and then we'll start putting things up on the vehicle. Before we go up, I'm going to take my M8 bolts with their bonded washers on them and apply a little bit of blue Loctite down near the bottom. This is just going to seal the threads, make sure your bolt doesn't back out, a little extra security. Once I have my Loctite on the bolts, we're going to head up to the roof. We're going to be grabbing our metal sleeves, our rubber, our M8 bolts, and our mounting feet. We're not going to be doing the adjustables yet, but we'll grab our middle and rears. Okay, so now we're up at the top of the vehicle. You're going to notice these white sleeves that are coming out of the roof. Those are going to be where your bolts are going into, and what your metal sleeves that we removed from our rubber spacers are going to be sliding over. We get a lot of questions about if one of those is damaged or missing or whatever. That's not a huge issue. You're just going to want to make sure this fits as tightly over that sleeve as you can get it. I know sometimes if you've already had a different rack on, they might be damaged, they might be mushroomed out. It makes it a little bit difficult to get on, but you want to really take your time, work it around, make sure this sleeve sits flat on your roof over those white sleeves in the roof. That's going to help with your watertight seal and help the rack sit properly. So we're just going to jump right in, going to get those installed on those white sleeves. We're going to do this on all 4 on this side. These white sleeves are in really good condition, so go on really easily. Then we're going to take our rubber and simply slide that back over those metal sleeves that we just installed, making sure they sit flush on the roof. These aren't side specific, so whatever orientation they go on is perfect. Now that we got the rubber and those sleeves installed, we're going to take one of our rears and one of our middles. These, again, also are not side specific. So the way that this mount is going to sit is different than all of our other mounts. The flat face is going to sit outside, so your mounting face is going to face towards the center of the vehicle. And we're gonna install these before getting anything else going. All we're gonna do here is get this finger tight, and we're gonna leave that loose until until later in the video. This is gonna be also a crucial step in getting your rack to sit snug on the front. We'll explain that a little bit later, but finger tight on these for now is perfect. Once you get this side done, we'll go to the other side and do the same thing. These are installed on this side, the mounting feet. You'll notice these are still loose. You can still move them around quite a bit. That's totally okay. They're just finger tight. Strong enough to hold the rack on and the side plates once we get them up here, but not tight enough to suck them down and get in their permanent spot yet. Now that the mounts are all just finger tight up on the roof, we're gonna go ahead and get our side plates up there as well. To do this, I'm gonna have Trevor step in here and give me a hand. You can do it by yourself. A little bit awkward, kind of a balancing act. But to do this, we're gonna take 4 of our socket buttons. We're gonna take 8 of our quarter washers, and we're gonna just install 4 of those onto those socket buttons right off the bat. The other 4, we're just gonna take up to the truck with us. And then we're also gonna grab 4 of our nylock nuts. We're gonna take our side plate. Trevor's gonna line it up for me and hold it while I get these bolts started through the side plates. And what we're gonna do is focus on getting just one end to start on both. So you'll notice your middle mounting location is gonna be a shorter slot here. And we're gonna feed the socket button in from the outside through the mount, washer on the back, and then I'm just gonna get this nylock started on it. And then since we're up here, we'll do both at the same time. Again, it's gonna go socket button, washer, side plate mount, washer, and then nylock. And gonna leave both of those loose, just enough to keep them supported on the vehicle. And then do the same with the rear. The rear mounting slot is gonna be the one directly in front of the final crossbar slot. And once all 4 of these are up, you'll notice that we still can slide the rack back and forth to find out the correct position on the truck. And we'll adjust from there once we get our other side plate up. Side plates are up on both sides. The nylocks are just started on the socket button bolts. So what I'm gonna do now is kind of the same thing we did with the adjustables earlier. I'm just gonna get it tightened up just to support itself. I'll go all the way tight and then back 1 turn. That'll just allow me to continue to slide the side plate back and forth, but not have to worry about something weird happening with one of these bolts falling or nuts falling off. So I got a 7/16 wrench on the back side and a 5/32 Allen. And we'll just tighten these up, making sure it's still able to be slid. And we're gonna do this on all 4 mounts. So next, we're gonna just take 2 of our crossbars and bring them up to the truck. These are gonna help kind of line everything up and make sure everything is square. Again, I have Trevor up there to give me a hand. I'm gonna take 2 crossbars and 4 socket buttons with washers on each one, and he has the same on that side. And the first one I like to do is the crossbar all the way at the rear. We're gonna do this to help kind of get the rack where it should be sitting forward and back and able to clear the shark fin back here. So we're both gonna get it started, and this crossbar will sit all the way at the back of the slot. So as far back as it can go is the correct placement for this one. And we can go ahead and tighten that up as soon as we get it in there. This one will not be moving for the rest of the install. Rear crossbars in. You'll notice the whole rack still isn't sitting very square. That's okay for right now. We're gonna take another one, and we're gonna put it somewhere in the middle here. This is not a critical position by any means. You can kind of throw it wherever you want. I just like to get 2 up here just to help square everything up and get the side plate sucked in. And the way this rack's set up, the crossbars work out really nicely with spacing. You're gonna have 1 at the back of each slot with an extra one to throw in between wherever you like. So again, we're gonna set this one up at the very back of the slot that we chose. And once it's in, we will tighten it all the way down. This crossbar also will not be moving for the rest of the install. By tightening the crossbar at the back of the slots, it's already started to square the rack up. So the next step is going to be finding out where it should sit forward and back on the truck. This rack's really easy. Generally speaking, 99% of these set up with about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch between your shark fin and that rear crossbar. Those should not be touching. If your crossbar is touching that shark fin, it's too far forward. If you have more than a 1/4 inch back there, your rack's too far back. So that's kind of an easy rule of thumb to go off of. But traditionally, the way we like to square up our racks and center them up on the vehicle is take a step back, look at the spline of the rack compared to the roof line of the truck, and from there you should be able to adjust back and forth to get that spline of the rack to follow the curvature of the roof of the vehicle. These are all designed specifically for the vehicle that it's going on, so that should line up really nicely. Generally speaking, also another good rule of thumb on this one is the back crossbar, or the back mounting foot is usually dead center in that rear mounting slot. So a couple easy ways to take out some of the guesswork, but once you get it squared up on both sides, you're going to want to make it match where the mounting foot sits on both sides in relation to the side plate. And once you're happy with that, we can tighten down the socket buttons and nylocks and pretty much lock this rack in place. Now I'm tightening these down. You will notice I have not touched a power tool this entire install. I do understand they make installs a little bit easier, but these socket buttons, if you get an impact on there, they strip out really easily with an impact, and then you're going to be in a world of hurt because they are a pain in the butt to get out. So I'm just using a wrench and tightening these down. No need to go crazy on them. Just get them nice and snug. And now our rack is in place, shouldn't be sliding back and forth, and we'll move on to the next step. So we're going to be throwing the rest of the crossbars up now. Besides two, we're going to set these out of the way. We're going to free up some table space. One of them is going to be for our adjustables, and then one of them is going to be for the fairing. So you'll notice that I have set up the rest of our hardware with their washers. If you have a little bit of extra hardware, that's totally fine. Sometimes we throw some extra nuts and bolts in there just in case. So I'm going to take handful of socket buttons, hand them to Trevor. He's going to head up to the other side, and we're going to get these crossbars set up. All of these are going to be staying loose until the final walkthrough of the rack when we tighten them down. This is a good spot where you can kind of set them up with the plans of if you're putting a tent on, a box on, max tracks, whatever it might be. So we're just going to leave them loose. That way they're adjustable up until the very end. So we'll get going on those. Personally, I like to set each one of these crossbars up at the back of the slot. It works out really well with this rack, and then that way it gives you nice spacing. If you're doing it at the same time, it's a good idea to let one side get in first. That way you're not fighting each other on the side plates. Once he gets his started, I will get mine in. And again, just going to leave these loose so they can be slid back and forth through the entire install. Now we are going to be taking one of our crossbars that we set aside and setting up our adjustable mounting feet. To do this, we're going to take 4 T-nuts, drop them into the slots. You should have your adjustable feet already pre-assembled. And once your T-nuts are in, the adjustable foot is going to go onto the bottom of the crossbar with the rubber pad facing out. And we're just going to get these tight and then back them off one turn with our hands. That way we are able to slide the mounting foot back and forth on the crossbar. We'll be adjusting that up on the roof. And we'll set both of these up and take it on up. All right, now we're going to be bringing this up to the truck. This is your final chance to make sure your nut is on there nice and secure, but still able to be adjusted. It's going to be a lot easier to do that now before it's up there upside down. So we're going to put this in just like any other crossbar and flip her over. The rubber pads are going to rest on the roof. That is what they are designed to do. This is going to go all the way forward up in your front mounting slot. And what we're going to do here is we're going to start going over some of the tricks that I use to get this adjustable foot nice and tight. So now we're going to start getting these adjustable feet tight. I get a lot of questions about tips, techniques, ways to do it. I'm going to show you everything that I do to ensure that these are nice and tight and as tight as they can be. The very first thing I like to do is set this crossbar up all the way in the front of this slot. I know it's a small slot, there's not a whole lot of adjustability forward and backwards, but even that 1/4 inch forward is going to help you later on. So I have the crossbar all the way forward, and all I'm going to do is tighten this front bolt. Not going to be crazy, that's going to come loose again, and we're going to do the same on that side and make sure that's tight up there. The next thing I like to do is, we have rubber here, but it's about 1/2 inch thick to 1 inch. I like to grab something soft, not going to damage the roof, and a microfiber, wrap it around, and kind of make a nice big block. That is going to be getting shoved up under the tip of the side plate. So we have that up here. Next thing we're going to do is adjust our mounting foot out so it sits on the black weather stripping on the top of the truck. There's no double-sided tape, no silicone, nothing gross, no mess. We're just going to have this sitting out there on the weather stripping. If it rests up against your side plate a little bit, it's totally okay. Not going to make any noise there. But you want it to sit on the weather stripping as much as you can. Before we even adjust that down, we're going to tighten the bolts that go up into the crossbar. So I have a 7/16 wrench. Make sure it's still sitting where I want it to sit, and tighten those bolts that go up into the crossbar. This is going to lock that mounting foot in place and ensure it's not moving back and forth on me. So another important step that we did not forget about is that the roof bolts are still loose on all of our mounting feet. That is going to be critical here. It's going to give us a little bit more upward play when we're getting these things tightened down. So if you already tighten those, loosen them up now. Those are going to help a lot. So I got my little block. You can use anything, bunch of rags, cardboard, whatever you can find laying around, and pull up on the tip of the side plate with about as much force as you can get, and then shove your little block up under the tip of the side plate. You're going to notice that lifts it up quite a bit. You can adjust your adjustable mounting foot down now, and that's where we're going to tighten it. This might take a few times going back and forth, but this method will work, and if you get it tight enough, you will have a completely silent rack. So it's important to take your time on this step, really go back and forth, get it as tight as you can, and yeah, you'll have a good, nice fitting rack. So now that I adjusted it all the way down, I'm going to make sure it's all the way down. I'm going to put my thumb on top of the mounting foot and kind of just keep downward pressure on it. And our 7/16 is going to go on the back side, and we're just going to tighten down on the nylock that's on the back of that carriage bolt. Once these are tight, you should have a pretty sturdy side plate, and you can slide that out. The rack will kind of settle down, and I can already tell by moving it without that side even tight, that's going to be a pretty good fit. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll check in and see where we're at. So I got the other side all adjusted up as much as I can. Good way to test if it's tight is you should be able to move the entire truck back and forth without it moving on the weather stripping at all. So I still have a tiny bit of movement here, but I think my final adjustments are going to take that out. So now this is where I'm going to loosen that front bolt and then shove this back to the back of the slot. What that does is works the adjustable mount up the curve of the roof, so you're going to get a little bit tighter there. Doesn't seem like a lot again, but it can make a big difference and can just be that final little edge you need to get everything nice and secure. Once it's at the back of the slot, I'm going to tighten that down. And then the final step to tightening everything down is grabbing a 13 with a socket, or a 13 millimeter socket with an extension, and going to tighten down the roof bolts now going into the roof from the mounting feet. This is going to suck the rack down even more. After that, we should have a completely sturdy rack. When tightening these down, it's really important to know that you can way over tighten these since they're on a rubber block. You can pretty much suck that thing down, compress it all the way to the roof. So it's really important not to over tighten these. If you over tighten it, you start to risk water intrusion through the bonded washer because it's crushed out too much. So what you're looking for is just tighten it down until that bonded washer starts to flatten out. You don't want it to be 100% flat, but once you start to see it flatten out and that rubber come out of the edges of that bonded washer, that's plenty tight. I know with these, it's really easy to get carried away because like I said, you can just tighten forever. But it's really important not to over tighten. It's also a good idea to work back and forth evenly on these bolts. Don't go all the way tight with one and then go to the other one. It's a good idea to get a few turns on the forward one, a few turns on the back, and kind of alternate back and forth. This will just make sure everything sits flat on the roof, and again, ensure that watertight seal that we're looking for. So now that everything's tight, roof bolts in through the mounting feet, I'm going to work my way around and tighten down these crossbars. It's kind of a good time to do it, just a final check, make sure everything's square before we get that fairing on. It'll also help me with my final test on kind of shaking the rack back and forth, making sure it's not moving at all. These amounts get extremely difficult to adjust when your fairing is on, so that's why you'll notice it's been off this whole time. We're pretty much going to finish the rack before putting that fairing on. That way if there are any adjustments, it makes it a little easier for us. So like I said, I'm just going to work my way around the rack, make sure everything's tight, then we'll move on to the fairing. Okay, so we've worked all the way around the rack, ensured everything's tight from the crossbar bolts to the mounting bolts that go into the roof. This should be the tightest that this rack can get on these adjustable feet now at this point, and you should be able to move the entire vehicle no problem with right up by those adjustable feet. There should be no movement. If you have a little bit, you can't get it fully tight, usually not the end of the world. It should still be pretty quiet for you, but ideally you get those things planted, no movement whatsoever. Now we'll get the fairing on. The final step is going to be installing the fairing. To do this, we're going to take our 6 remaining T-nuts, line up our fairing with the crossbar, and kind of just flush up the edges. And then I like to draw a little imaginary line between the holes for the bolts and the crossbar. That's where I'm going to end up setting my T-nuts up. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's pretty easy to adjust while the fairing's on, but just to make it a little bit easier. So we're going to set these up in line with the holes. It does not matter which way the T-nut's going as long as the flat face is up facing you. And then just set our fairing onto the crossbar. So we're going to take our 6 short socket buttons, and I like to start in the middle. Just get it threaded into that T-nut below. Now you should be able to adjust or find your other T-nuts by sliding it and exposing them below the fairing. Once you got all of these on, we'll take it up to the truck and throw it on. And you should have 4 socket buttons remaining with their washers. You're going to flush up the ends of the fairing to the end of the crossbar and tighten these down. These do not need to be crazy over tightened. You'll hear the T-nut below start to bite. That's how you know it's tight. Now that we got those 6 bolts tight, let's take it up to the truck. Another good time to have your buddy step in. You don't want to rest this on the roof. And we'll just get the fairing started, and we'll adjust up and down here once we get all 4 bolts started. Final adjustment that you're going to be making is sliding your fairing down. I like to make the edge trim line up with the tip of the side plate. Should be pretty nice and flush. If you set up your rack correctly, you should have somewhere between a 1/4 and a 1/2 inch gap off of your roof. Very important on our racks to not have your fairing sitting on your roof. That makes noise, destroys paint, and causes all kinds of issues. So the gap on the roof to the rack is completely normal and intended. Once you get that flushed up to the bottom, tighten it down, check your clearance, and should be all good to go. Fairing's in place. That's the final step for this install. So it's a good idea to go around one more time, just make sure all those bolts are tight. It's also a really good idea after driving it for a few days, a few hundred miles, go back through, check that hardware one more time. You don't want anything backing out if you take a trip. Don't have any hardware backing out on you. So other than that, if you run into any issues during this install, please do not hesitate to reach out. One of the members of our team will be happy to help. Other than that, the rack looks great on the truck. Thanks for watching.